Has he actually recorded yet?
Well, unfortunately, I missed the juicy bit. Just
Damn
always a fraction too late, aren't I?
No one needs to know my real age. I'm a woman, you don't see this.
Well, look, it's sometimes the truth hurts. All right. Before I was so rudely interrupted by Carly noticing that I was trying to get the recording going so I could catch her out, we were talking about the fact that we're up to episode 19 already.
Isn't that crazy?
Like we're legally of age here. Now, I haven't plugged in the headphones. My bad.
I'm tangled. Hang on.
Well, that's not my fault. You mean tangled? We're organised, I promise. We've got it all together. We do.
I can hear myself. Oh, you didn't knock over the water for once. Well done.
It's amazing. And speaking of water, you know, I realised, like, I know you're in charge of the podcast and everything, but I just felt like you were kind of a little too in charge, like controlling my water, and I had to not drink it too fast because if I run out of water and then I need some water, it's a problem. So
I'm a type A personality. This is expected.
So up yours. This is my bid for freedom. I'm now a strong, independent man who don't need no woman.
You're drinking out of plastic.
Well,
People are going to come for you for that.
This is lightly sparkling.
Yeah.
Now I can drink as fast as I want, and the duration of the podcast will be limited by the strength of my bladder.
And I was going to say something else. I won't be childish. All those bubbles might cause chaos.
Look, there could be some issues. There might be some teething problems. We're in uncharted territory, and now that TV has stopped working because I still haven't. Oh, there it is. Seriously? Seriously? There we.
What is it? What is it we're doing? Are we breathing?
If you could stop, that'd be great.
So what we've got is for anyone that's listening to this as opposed to watching it, we have a monitor in front of us that tells us which camera it's on. And as we've advanced technologically, we now have temperamental technology.
Yeah.
So it's one thing for us to be technology illiterate. Now we have...
Oh, yeah, technology that is technology illiterate.
Yeah, technology that just intermittently decides not to work. But...
Like right now. I mean, the timing on that, Carly, the timing on that.
Perfect.
All right. However, I have now, after 3 weeks of saying, I'll do it, I just ordered before the show the new cables.
Excellent.
And they're due to arrive on Friday, which means we'll have time to install them for next week's show.
Brilliant. So what you're saying is we can get started finally.
Incremental improvements.
Incremental.
That's been the theme for over the last 19 episodes, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we had
has been incremental improvements.
We had someone asking us why we aren't on Rumble yet. I'm like, guys, I'm one person.
Yeah.
Please let me get through 1 week without having some steep learning curve.
Like we've finally got a machine to do the editing for us. Just like give us a break.
Let me enjoy just having 1 week where I'm not having to like fumble my way through some new interface.
Yeah. But look, we are making wonderful progress. And you sent me a notification. We've had, I think, 6 people download us on the podcasting platforms.
6?
I think that's what it said, wasn't it?
It was actually last week we had 2,500 downloads.
That's a cumulative total.
No, that's for last week's
in the
episode.
Week.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are actually you're actually watching.
Yeah. Well, no, they're listening.
Well, listening. That's a little bit scary.
Yeah, that's what I said to G. So just before we turned the cameras on, I have got insomnia at the moment. I'm not sleeping well. And normally I fumble my words and I have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
I'll say Monopoly and it comes out Monopoly or something like that.
Now we are broadcasting Monopoly to the world.
Now I'm like, there's actually people listening. I'm getting a little bit self-conscious. So if I mince my words up, it's because I'm literally not sleeping at the moment. So be kind.
So do we need to like put you on some drugs or something to help you sleep?
Well, I think I have finally admitted to myself I may have bitten off a little bit more than I can chew.
Well, I was just thinking because we could call Macron or Starmer or Mers, and I think that they'll probably have some medicine for you.
I wanted to start the podcast with like a napkin and just be like,
"Oops."
But I was like, maybe people will think I'm actually doing cocaine.
Yeah. Well, yes, no comment.
So, but
well, fantastic. And in the vein of obviously incremental improvements, me bringing my own damn water.
Yeah.
We need to do good news.
Good news.
What is your good news, Carly?
What is my good news? Yes. This is a funny one. I'm going to make you watch it on air. And don't worry, guys. I will timestamp this and put it on screen so you guys can watch it. So my good news starts with a video.
Oh, dear.
And You are going to watch it first.
I'm in trouble already.
Yeah. Melbourne, once the world's most livable city, is on the fast track to becoming Gotham City. And aside from the youth crime, vacancies in the homelessness crisis, and the crazy amounts of tax that has people fleeing the state, I thought it was about time that we have a monument to celebrate this descent. And no, I'm not referring to the Daniel Andrews statue. I'm referring to this burnout car that is on the corner of Springvale and Greens Road. As a photographer myself, I am somewhat of a fine art connoisseur, and I cannot think of a better contemporary way to display decay. And to be honest, this new monument is actually putting our taxpayer-funded monstrosities to shame because we're getting a twofer here. Whilst this is a beautiful illustration that we are in fact becoming a socialist hellhole like California or Venezuela, it's a wonderful dedication to the great Australian tradition of it's not my job, mate. Now, for those of you who have absolutely zero context what I'm talking about, this is obviously a burnt-out car and is sitting right on the gutter of a slip lane at a major intersection. It has been there for over 6 weeks now. It has a canary on it and, hilariously, also an abandoned car sticker. You think? Now, I am grossly aware this is due to some bureaucratic process where there's some paper pushing involved in determining whose responsibility it is to actually move this car. What I find so quintessentially Australian is that the local council worker who has mowed the lawns has mowed around the car, allowing nature to just take the car as its own. But in all seriousness, when did we all start accepting such a low standard in our state where we'll just drive around burnt-out cars on our way to work and just be like, she'll be right? Like, is this genuinely what we want as a state or a country, just to live in a world where this is acceptable and we just go, not my problem? As they say, the standard you walk past is the standard you're willing to accept, and apparently we all want to live in a third world shithole.
It's just waiting for a mate, Carly. It's just waiting for a mate.
I kid you not. So for context, guys, I'll put this up on the screen too. This is a burnout car that is literally on the gutter of a slip lane at a major intersection. Like, it is on the little concrete bit and then it's tarmac or like road.
Yeah.
And it has been there for 7 weeks and no one seems to care or no one's doing anything about it. And, the council worker has mowed around it. So that's how long it's been there.
Can I just say, it's wonderful to see that Jacinta Allen is really cutting back in the areas that are unnecessary, like arts spending and that sort of stuff. Because even if she bought that car new, that's only a $30,000-$40,000 monument, which in that particular case is way cheaper. But even if she did, like, she could put that monument on every single corner and still be spending less on public
100%.
artworks than what she already does. So
exactly.
The budget cuts, I approve.
Well, funnily enough, that reel I put up went viral.
Oh dear!
And
you don't have a happy relationship with Instagram reels going viral.
Every time it goes viral, I'm like,
What was viral in this case?
About 100,000 views.
Okay, all right, that's not too bad.
Across Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, the next business day back, that car has been removed.
Oh.
Yeah. So
what a coincidence.
I may have ruffled some council worker feathers.
Yeah, probably.
And the car got removed. So that's my good news. It only took me making an Instagram reel and it going viral to get that.
Well, you are really changing the world now.
Yeah.
And I'm being really rude to you and sending a message to my wife to say I'm already recording to see why she was trying to call me. So hopefully it's not an emergency and we don't have to pause or okay, cool. So
your good news.
Oh, goodness. I did not come prepared for this. It's just such a surprise after 19 episodes of starting with the exact same thing, of me having to think of what my good news is going to be. Look, I do have some good news if you're an accelerationist. You familiar with what an accelerationist is?
We talked about that. I think I am one.
So an accelerationist is just basically someone who says the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and the sooner we can get to the collapse, the sooner we get to the rebuilding.
Yeah.
And I did a video last week basically pointing out why Susan Ley is part of the problem with Australian politics and not part of the solution. Not that I think Angus Taylor would have been much better, but I think he would have been less bad in the same way that I think Dutton would have been less bad than Albo. So it seems that Australians have chosen the path of accelerationism. Mm-hmm. We have a Liberal Party led by Susan Ley. We have a Nationals led by David Littleproud, who I've had a lot to say about over the journey. He's absolutely terrible in my opinion, and has been a disaster on the water issue, which I care a lot about. We, of course, have the Greens, who just selected a new leader. I didn't even bother to find out who that was because I know they're going to be terrible. And we have a Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. So what I think is really nice about this, the good news is Australia has chosen the accelerationist path. We are going to dive as quickly as we possibly can for Venezuela, and hopefully not get stuck there the way that Venezuela did?
Look, once we talked about Susan, I went and had a look into her and I was just like, you know what? Just bring it on.
Bring it on.
I've said that to you. Like, bring it on. Let's go. We know what's happening. Let's just.
All right, Carly, you win.
Yeah.
You win.
And it's, look.
We're all accelerationists now.
Do you know what really alerted me to this as well is that when I go and read the comment section, like if I ever see something pop up like that, I'll go read the comments and just see what the general pop is saying.
Yeah.
And it's actually really alarming how few people seem to believe that we are on that decline.
Sure.
You know, like even though it's blatantly screaming in front of us, there are so few people that are impacted across the board. Like maybe one thing's annoying them, but like relatively speaking, they're okay. And they're like, no, this is a great thing. At least, you know, he cares about the climate. And no, I think it's a really good thing for us. And Australia needs this. And we've rejected Trump politics and we've rejected conservatism. Australians are on the right path. And I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, you do you, buddy.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I think I say this every podcast. Some people just have to learn the hard way.
The tragedy is that the rest of us are lumped in with them.
Yes, it is frustrating.
The analogy I give is that there comes, if you're trying to save the Titanic by repairing the holes in the hull, but all of the other passengers are down there with sledgehammers making the holes bigger, there has to come a point where you just go, okay, you know what? This ship is going down.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Australia is there yet, but I'm making some calls and I'm scoping out what opportunities exist elsewhere. Not that I expect to need them in the next 3 years, but I think if we have another 2 electoral cycles, so 2 more elections without a radical snapback, then yeah, we're doing the full trip. We're going all the way down before we come back up.
It does alarm me. You know, for example, the ABC yesterday, or maybe not yesterday, like early days last week, posted something like 24,000 Victorian homes or renter homes have left the market.
Yep.
And meaning that the landlords have sold. And I went and read the comments and it was bizarre. It was something like, oh, the Murdoch media has now infiltrated the ABC and we've got like this conservative take on the property market.
Right.
And then there are other people going, so what, 24,000 homes are now back into the hands of first home buyers? Like, how's that a bad thing? Or owner occupiers?
Yeah.
And very few people seem to grasp what this actually means for our state. It was very much like me, we need. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. So let's dive into that because there are people who will be sitting there going, well, yeah, but that does mean 24,000 homes are back in the hands of owners. And that's absolutely true. But what that misunderstands is the favour, essentially, that landlords are actually doing. And people are going to hate me for saying this, but I did a video on this in 2019 before the world went mad. The largest charitable housing program in the world that is allowing people to live in houses they cannot afford is the thing called the rental market, where people, renters are coming along and paying less than the holding costs of the house. This is why people rail against negative gearing. Oh, negative gearing needs to be abolished. No, negative gearing is proof that that house is costing the owner of the house more than the renter is paying them. They're losing money on that house. That person renting that house, they can complain all they want about the cost of renting, but they can't afford to buy. And if that rental hadn't been available, they would have had to move even further out or to something even smaller or something even worse because they are not covering the actual costs of that house. So when we say, hey, we've forced 24,000 landlords to sell up and now those houses are in the hands of owner-occupiers, fantastic. But that will help those who are what economists refer to as at the margin. So the people who could almost already afford to buy, when 24,000 more homes come on the market and maybe prices get held down a little bit, they are able to jump in. The person that is nowhere near being able to afford to buy, the person that really needs rentals, is getting absolutely fucked. Absolutely screwed right now. The rental crisis is getting way, way worse for those who actually need rental properties. Only those who are already at the margins, already almost out, they're getting helped at the expense of the people further down the tree.
I think the problem is, and this is something that we go into in a second, but we've got to talk about what we're talking about this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll go straight into the first topic. This wasn't even a topic.
This wasn't even a topic, yeah.
You know, when like I said, I often read the comments purely because I want to get an understanding of what people are thinking. And it's very much this sort of pop culture politics where they grab a headline, they take that verbatim and they go, that's it. It's very superficial.
Yep.
There's no more thought beyond that or what it means from a 5-year, 10-year look. They very much go, this is a problem today, we need to resolve it. And when you do that, you're basically band-aiding everything and you're kicking the can down the road. And I do think in 5-10 years' time, these same people who cheered these policies on will be like, it's so unfair.
Yep.
There's no houses. Where are we meant to live?
And they won't see the connection.
Yeah.
So this is what's referred to as first order, second order, and third order effects. So politicians and bureaucrats write their policies based on the first order effect. If we regulate the cost of rental, if we regulate rental prices then and keep them down, then rental prices will stay down. That's the first order effect. Fantastic. The second order effect is people who were, again, investors who were at the margins, who were like, oh, I could get an investment property, but it's a bit dicey. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. They're now going to go elsewhere. Now, that might be celebrated by people who say, oh, but that means that property ends up in the hands of an owner-occupier, and we've already dealt with that. But the other thing that investors do is they pay to get new property built.
Yeah.
About 50% of these new suburbs popping up in the outer east of Melbourne and around our capital cities and our regional centres, about a third to half of those are being paid for by investors. If they bow out of the market, which they are doing in droves here in Victoria, then now new houses are not being built. That's the second order effect, is that houses aren't being built. And the third order effect is now the owners of the existing rentals that have decided to hang on, well, they're going to do what they did in Queensland, where Queensland brought in rules around how often you could increase rents on an existing tenant. So now what the landlord does is kick the tenant out.
Yeah,
because
that
they can set whatever price they want
happened to me.
on a new incoming tenant.
Yeah.
And this is the reality of the second and third order effects. It's the effect of the effect, or specifically it's the effect of people's reaction to the effect, and then the effect of people's reaction to the effect of people's reaction to the effect. And by the time you get to that third layer deep, now you understand what that policy is really going to do.
Yeah.
But politicians never think that deep. They only go to the first layer, and that's why almost everything the government does turns
and
to
so
shit.
does the average person. When I say they're superficially thinking, they're thinking about this
First
current
order
issue.
effect only. Yep.
That happened to me with my last house that I was in. I was really happy there. I'd been there 3 years. It'd been like a steady increase, like $10 a week, $20 a week.
Yep.
And then they basically said that when those interest rates came in at the middle of last year, they were like, the landlord's going to sell, and which I thought would be happening because I already know that she overpaid for the property. And it was just for context, it was a 2-bedroom freestanding unit that was built in the 70s that she bought in 2021 for $910,000. A 2-bedroom unit. I'm not even
ridiculous,
joking.
isn't it? Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it was a lovely renovated. They'd done a great job in fixing it up. I was very happy there. But when I learnt that it was almost $1 million property, I was like, are you kidding me? Anyway, so the interest rate crunch really hurt her. And I knew it was her investment property. So they put it on the market and she wasn't getting anywhere near the offers that she needed. She was not only going to lose, she was going to lose massively. So in the end, and it was Buxton Real Estate, they put so much pressure on me to move out. They're like, it'll be sold in a week, you'll be gone, the new owners will move straight in, it's just better for you now, we'll write you a reference. They were literally pushing me out. And when I went onto the rental market, I think I've told this story roughly before, my partner and I had kind of just started dating and I was like, and we had talked about maybe moving in together, and then all of a sudden I was like, help. And so he's like, well, we'll just move in together. Worked out really well. But then it was like all of a sudden the stress on me as the renter. I understand that the landlord had stress too, but it cost me personally $11,000 to move. And then Gareth obviously had his cost. And then we were looking at houses. There was nothing. I got priced out of Hampton. I just couldn't live in Bayside anymore. It was just not financially viable. And so we ended up further away. So I'm now further away from work. Gareth's further away from work. And yes, we do have a nice home, but we're paying a lot of money for it. It's bigger than what we need, but it was also what was available. We couldn't find that perfect 3-bedroom townhouse. It didn't exist.
Yeah, and this is...
Oh, sorry, and to add to that, they put up the price at my original property by $180 a week.
Yeah.
$180 a week.
And this is this is inflation at work. This is our dollars being devalued. This is just the total mismanagement of the economy, but also... You cannot protect renters by hurting landlords.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You don't accomplish that goal. You can help renters by making the holding costs of an investment lower, which is one of the things that negative gearing does do. But high interest rates and high inflation leading to a collapse in the value of our dollars is not going to be good for renters. And none of this stuff that they're doing is ultimately good. The end result of all of these policies is that it hurts the very people that they claim to be trying to help because they don't look deep enough into the effect of the effect of the effect.
You just remind me of something that, so Gareth and I both were in rentals, and in his rental property, he'd been there 12 years and he was the first person to move in after it had been built. It was a townhouse. And it was an older gentleman who owned it, and he owned it outright, no mortgage, nothing. And they had the same real estate agent up until I think halfway through last year. So it was weird timing for both of us. And it was Jealous Craig who took over and they bought out the Nationals, was it? Or the Professionals or something? Yeah. Anyway. And then all of a sudden Gareth gets this notice that his rent's going up by like $100 or $150 something. It was a lot. And he was quite friendly with his landlord. And his landlord was like, you're being a great tenant, like happy with you. And he was on a great rental pay,
Sure,
like
which
rate.
is why the jump was going to be so big.
Yeah, and like to be fair, he was probably paying below market rate.
Yeah.
But as soon as the new people came in, they were just like, put that straight up. Yeah. I think there's and having met plenty of real estate people, I think they thrive on that extra dollar as well, and that's making things a lot worse.
That's how their performance is judged. But I'm not against the idea of trying to maximize returns. Maximizing returns, I don't have a problem with. There are companies that choose to go a different path. There's an American company, the name of which I can't quite think of, that famously hasn't put their prices up. They make some sort of a snack, a little Twinkie bar or something like that, and they haven't put their prices up in however long. And the owner, who's now quite old, is like, well, we paid off all our machinery, we don't have any debt, we're still making money at that price, so we're going to leave it at that price. I mean, fair play to you. That's great if that's what you want to do.
That's very honourable.
Yeah, but I don't have a problem with people trying to maximize their financial returns. Money is a language. It's a very important part of our public discourse, and it's a very price signals are a very important way of making decisions and sending signals into the marketplace so we can meet each other's needs. I don't have a problem with any of that. But when you have an economy that at the most fundamental level is collapsing, where we do have inflation that is way higher than the official inflation rate, the official inflation figures ever since 1980, when they changed how they were calculated, have been absolute nonsense. They're absolute fantasy. Our real inflation rate, my gut is that it's at least 2 to 3 times higher than the official inflation rate. And that's reflected in what's happening in the property market. It's what's reflected in what's happening with rents. And unfortunately, that's now kind of baked into the cake, because that deficit spending and the money printing to fund the deficit spending is now kind of baked into our budget. So when your fundamentals of your economy are collapsing, you're going to see $150 a week jumps in rental, not because the house is really worth that much more, but because your dollars are now worth that much less.
Yeah. So this was great, but none of this was on my notes.
None of it was, no.
Not even a bit. But
and I promised I was going to be good this week, and I've already broken that promise.
We are useless. No, it's okay. So episode 19, our topics. We should have like a little celebration next week. Episode 20.
20 episodes. Do you realise that 26 episodes we will have been going for 6 months?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
What a commitment.
I tell you.
Okay, so today's topics. Hey guys, future editing Carlz here. In true Carlz and Topher fashion, we didn't stick to any of these things. We kind of meandered and segued and tangented our way through this entire podcast. So if you actually want to know what we talked about, here is the list, and it's also in timestamps down the bottom. You're welcome. Clementine Ford versus Abby Chatfield.
Oh, my favourite.
I thought you could not be more excited to get into that topic. It's worth covering. And also, just a little pointy finger.
Just kill me now. Put me out of my misery.
No, this is important. Little pointy wiggly finger to some of the people in your comments who were like, last week were rolling their eyes about the mention of the Labubu dolls.
Oh, yes.
My issue with some of the older generation, and I don't mean this to attack you, I'm merely bringing this to your attention,
she does.
Is that you will snub your nose at culture things.
Yeah.
For example, this feud between Abby and Clem, and be like, oh, it's not worth our attention. Unfortunately, it actually is, because when you take your finger off the pulse of the cultural zeitgeist, you become unaware as to what is genuinely influencing the direction we're all going. And unfortunately, people like Clem, people like Abby are incredibly influential, particularly in young women. And if you ignore this, you are basically taking your your hand off the steering wheel.
So this is kind of the tension between populism and elitism, and obviously elitists getting out of touch, and someone like a Jordan Peterson and these guys all talking amongst themselves and getting increasingly out of touch with the common man is an example on sort of our side of politics, so to speak. But the thing that makes me different in this whole populist and elitist thing is that as an elitist, I am actually better than everybody else, whereas the other elitists really aren't. They only think they're better.
Yeah.
Whereas I really actually am. And so that means that I can turn my nose up at things like this, and it's completely fine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least there's honor in being self-aware.
Right. No, I know. It's a curse that I wear well, though. Yes. Okay. Fine. Fine.
The hell up. That's how you know we're at episode 19. I'm very comfortable. Just
shut up. Just shut up. Stop it.
All right. Next one is Dan Andrews and John Setka spotted together at a wedding.
Yes. Now this is great
No,
because
no talking. God damn it.
Sorry.
I'm going to annoy some followers because I just said the Lord's name in vain. Sorry. Susan Ley becomes the new Liberal Party leader. Don't say a word.
That's not a word. That's not a word. Wow. I just got the silent treatment and it actually worked.
Macron, Starmer, and the German Chancellor allegedly with a little baggie. We'll get into that. The Stuart Highway being shut down over two people doing target.
Stuart Highway, yes. Sorry. Target practice, yes. The army were called.
Yep. US-China trade tensions
eased.
Eased.
Yes, quite interesting, that one.
Keir Starmer backflips on immigration policy. Peter Dutton's taxpayer-funded retirement package. We've already talked about the burnout car. That was great. Letitia James under federal investigation for mortgage fraud.
Who?
Letitia James, the Attorney General that came after Trump for his civil case.
Oh, okay.
Is now under criminal investigation.
Oh, wow.
Now just keeping you up to date.
Yeah.
And Trump's new executive orders on drug prices.
Yes, interesting.
I don't think we'll get through half of this.
I very sincerely doubt that, but let's give it a red hot go.
Hey guys, thanks for watching another short clip from The Oddcast. If you want to watch the full video, it's over on YouTube at The Oddcast HQ, and you can see more from me and Topher over there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep up with us in the comments.